Hello everyone, and welcome to my CBS Soaps official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Friday, October 24th, 2025. Halloween in Salem wasn't just a holiday, it was an atmosphere, an entire shift in the air. The leaves rustled differently, the wind blew heavier, and even the street lamps flickered with a strange amber glow, like the town itself knew something was brewing. The town square had been decorated for days now. Orange lights tangled across lamp posts, paper bats hanging from storefront awnings, and pumpkins both real and plastic sat in little clusters along the sidewalks. Kids in costumes had already begun wandering with parents in tow, sticky fingers gripping caramel apples. But for Javi and Leo, the square wasn't just a festive scene. It was the backdrop to something raw, something real, something that had grown from chaos and heartache. Javi held Tesoro close to his chest, the tiniest bundle wrapped in a soft knit blanket, eyes half-lidded and curious as the world brightened around him. Leo, meanwhile, was in full dramatic tour guide mode, sweeping his arm across the space as though he were unveiling the Sistine Chapel. "Now, darling," Leo said, adjusting the tiny infant cap on Tesoro's head like he was styling for a cover shoot. "Salem calls this Halloween. Costumes, candy, spooky nonsense. But Javi here," he pointed dramatically, "has informed me that where he's from, it's something entirely more poetic." Javi smiled softly, voice calm but proud. "Dia de las Brujas," he repeated, rolling the words gently like a blessing. "Day of the Witches." It's part history, part faith, part honoring those who walked before us. It's not just about pretending to be monsters, it's about acknowledging them, and learning from them, and remembering the spirits that linger. Leo blinked, unexpectedly moved. "See, this is why I fell in love with a man who actually reads books instead of using one to level out a wobbly table." Tesoro made a soft cooing sound, like a sigh. And if the moment could have stayed soft, just a little longer, maybe things would have stayed simple. But Salem never did simple, because that's when Amy stepped forward. Her presence cut the air. She wasn't dressed for Halloween, no costume, no festive scarf. Just her grief, and the brittle hardness that had formed around her ever since Sophia had been taken from the world too soon. Her hands were clasped tightly, knuckles white, as if she was holding on to something only she could see. "May I?" she began softly, voice cracking even though she was trying to hide it. "May I hold my grandson?" Leo and Javi exchanged a look, quick, silent, meaningful. They both knew Amy didn't approve of them, or their relationship, or the fact that Tesoro was being raised in a home that didn't look like the life she imagined for Sophia's child. But grief does strange things. And sometimes, love slips through the cracks, even when resentment stacks up like stone. Javi nodded slowly. He placed Tesoro carefully in Amy's arms, and for a moment, the world softened. Amy's chin trembled. "He has her eyes," she whispered. "Sophia always had such bright eyes, like she could see the good in anything, anyone." Leo swallowed, and for once, had nothing flamboyant or witty to contribute. But then, as love does, one wrong word sparked a fire. Javi, perhaps too gently, perhaps too hopefully, said, "Johnny and Chanel have been helping so much with the adoption process." Amy's head snapped up, like a storm cloud shifting direction mid-sky. "No." Her voice cracked like lightning. "No. Those two will raise my grandson over my dead body." Leo blinked. "Amy!" This isn't what God wants, Amy continued, clutching Tesoro tighter, as if protecting him from something only she could see. This isn't what Sophia would want. I need to be her voice. I am her voice, because she isn't here to say it herself. There are moments when silence is heavy, when it feels like the world is paying attention. This was one of those. Leo exhaled. We're all trying to do right by Sophia. You know that. But Amy didn't answer. She placed Tesoro back in Javi's arms, slowly, carefully, like passing off something holy. Then she walked away, leaving the square colder than before. Meanwhile, inside the pub, Chanel and Stephanie sat opposite one another, surrounded by the soft buzz of lunchtime chatter and the clinking of silverware. A poster board sat nearby advertising the upcoming book launch / Sweet Bits collaboration / book club event. Because in Salem, why settle for one concept when you can mash all three into a dramatic community gathering? Chanel sipped her coffee, eyes alight with excitement. I can't believe you're Anastasia. I mean, I can. You've always had a way with words. But to write something that had the entire city gossiping? That's iconic. Stephanie flushed, twisting her tea mug. It wasn't supposed to blow up like that. It was just something I did while I was trying to find myself, after everything with Everett and my dad, and my own stupid impulse to romanticize emotionally unavailable men. Chanel leaned in, playful. Girl, listen. If we're making a list of dumb romantic decisions made in this town, we'll be here longer than Marlena's collective supernatural possession timeline. Stephanie snorted. Fair. But then the laughter dropped, replaced by the quiet weight of confession. It's just, Stephanie said softly, the book. It has pieces of me in it. Real pieces. Stuff I didn't think I'd ever have to face again. Chanel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. And now you're stepping into that truth. That's brave. That's beautiful. And I'm proud of you. Stephanie smiled. One of those genuine smiles that comes from being seen. But outside, another conversation was brewing, and not nearly as supportive. Philip, Johnny, and Alex stood around Titan's conference table, discussing the book adaptation and PR management. The room was all sleek leather chairs and glass walls, the kind of place where ambition echoes. Johnny tried to stay focused, but emotionally, he was somewhere else entirely. Because hearing Stephanie meant hearing Anastasia. And hearing Anastasia meant remembering how much of that story had been real. And you're sure your loyalty is still with Titan? Alex asked, a bit too casually, which meant not casually at all. Johnny nodded. Titan comes first. But Alex didn't look convinced, because adoption paperwork was piling up, because Amy was already showing signs of resistance, because love was never a steady road. Not here. After Johnny stepped outside, Alex followed, stepping into his path. Look, I just wanted to say, Alex began, awkward for once, I'm pulling for you and Chanel. Really, I want it to work out. Johnny gave a faint, grateful smile. Thanks. Inside, Stephanie and Philip's conversation was taking a very different turn, because Philip recognized his own, participation in certain chapters of Anastasia's book. Really? Philip muttered, eyebrows raised. That's how you described me? Stephanie groaned. Oh my God, you recognized yourself? Philip lifted his glass. Hard not to. Alex choked on his beer. Wait, you mean that chapter? Stephanie stood up. I'm leaving. But nobody moved. because the awkwardness wasn't over, not even close. And across town, the emotional center of the episode unfolded like a slow shattering. Sarah stood facing Xander, and Xander, chest tight, jaw clenched, eyes red-rimmed but refusing to break, admitted the truth. All of it. He had attacked Philip. He had gone too far. And Sarah? Oh, Sarah. Her heartbreak was a quiet kind. A kind that didn't scream or collapse. A kind that simply stopped. You lied to me, she said softly. You made me doubt myself. Again. Xander stepped forward, but she stepped back. Every time you apologize, she whispered, you promise you'll change. You promise you'll be better, but you never are. And I can't do this again. I can't rebuild myself around someone who destroys me. He reached for her, his voice breaking on her name. Sarah. She removed her rings and placed them in his hand. There's no us. Not anymore. And she walked away, leaving him in the doorway like a man whose entire world had just gone silent. Back in the Salem Inn, Xander found Philip, and the two men, once enemies, now bonded through grief, guilt, and shared damage, sat on opposite beds with beers in hand. If I can forgive you, Philip said quietly, she can too. Xander shook his head. Not this time. And across town, Sarah called Justin. I'd like to file for divorce, she whispered. Her voice didn't break, but her heart did. Outside, in the square, night began falling, lights flickering to life, jack-o'-lantern faces glowing eerie orange. Johnny and Chanel returned, searching for reassurance. Leo and Javi stood close, protective, supportive, steady. Chanel exhaled, voice trembling. What if we lose him? Javi shook his head. Then we'll fight. Together. But the wind had shifted. Salem was holding its breath. Because love stories here never end sweetly. They unravel. They break. They begin again. And tomorrow, something was coming. Something nobody saw yet. But Salem always knew.